What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, I'm going to talk about my man, Terence Bug Crawford, number one pound for pound fighter in the world. I have no problem saying it. One of my favorite boxers around, fights for Top Rank. And there was a report that came out about who might be his next opponent. And, you know, my worries for Terence Crawford in the welterweight division, if this comes to pass, that this is the guy that he's going to fight, you know, it's pretty much what I thought was going to happen when he gets to 147, because there's the way that Top Rank does business with their in-house fights, and the fact that a lot of the 147 pounders are actually over with the PBC, that being the WBC champion who just vacated it, but the two guys that are fighting for that, whenever that happens, Danny Garcia and Sean Porter, plus of course Keith Thurman with the WBA, and the IBF title holder, the future great fighter Errol Spence Jr., definitely one of my favorite fighters in boxing, and a potential super fight matchup for Terence Crawford. They're all with the PBC. So this article that came out of Boxing Scene, which, you know, is Boxing Scene, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But I will roll with it for the sake of this conversation, because I have a suspicion that it's about accurate. And according to this article, there's a fight, of course, tomorrow. Well, there's supposed to be a fight tomorrow with the WBC junior welterweight champion Jose Ramirez was supposed to be fighting, but he got his I don't know if he's going to fight or if they're going to get a very, very last minute replacement to replace the guy that he's fighting. But on the undercard of that is a guy named Egis Kavaliauskas. He's a welterweight contender that is fighting Juan Carlos Abreu. I'm sure we're all familiar with Juan Carlos Abreu. And he is 19-0 with 16 KOs. And the question coming from Steve Kim, now you know Steve Kim is a boxing writer that's, I think, you know, it's pretty fair to say that he's in close with Top Rank, and he gets consistent information from Top Rank that this guy, Egis Kavaliauskas, is in line to face Terence Crawford next. Now, Egis Kavaliauskas is the number 2 rated guy for the WBO, for the WBO title, but he is, more importantly, the highest rated Top Rank boxer with the WBO. And the only other welterweights that I know that they have is Konstantin Ponomarev, who is not ranked inside the top 10 or the top 15 of the WBO, unless that is that this one guy who's listed twice at number 7, his name is Abdu Kakarov. Yeah, Abdu Kakarov is ranked on this by this site as number 7 twice. So unless they really meant to put Konstantin Ponomarev in the WBO rankings, because Ponomarev is ranked by the WBC at number 10. But also this guy, Kavaliauskas, is also ranked by the WBA at number 4, and number 15 by the IBF, and number 5 by the WBC. So this guy is somebody that's ranked inside of the top inside the top 5 for the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO, but ranked number 15 by the IBF. Now, I looked at the record. First of all, I watched a short bout, the last bout that took place with Egis Kavaliauskas, and that was him against David I always kill his dude's name, Avaniason, which was a TKO in the 6th round. And I got to tell you, man, I watched the bout and I watched the highlight reel, and this is the first time that I dozed off in the first half of a highlight reel. Kavaliauskas has absolutely positively no chance against Errol Spence Jr. You can write that home. I said Errol Spence Jr. I meant no chance against Terence Crawford. This cat's too slow, and his record is padded. I mean, one of the first things that I do when I look at the records for people that are fighting, this guy Kavaliauskas is an undefeated boxer, right? He's undefeated. He's 19-0 with 16 KOs. He's 30 years old, out of Lithuania, right? 5'9", 71-inch reach. But then I just go back and look at who the last guys are that he's faced, right? And if you look at the record of the guys that he's facing, this guy, the guy that is, Juan Carlos Abreu is, is 31 years old. He's had some other good fights. He fought, knocked out Jesus Soto Karass. He lost a few years ago, 6 years ago, to Humberto Sosa. But he's been around, so he's a seasoned guy. 21-3 with 19 KOs out of the Dominican Republic. And I think that this is his biggest step up, right? But if you look at the fights that this guy Kavaliauskas has had before that, you look at like David Avasyan. I'm always killing this guy's name. If you look at what he did in his last few fights before he would be, in line to be the number 2 guy for the IBF, he beat a guy that was coming off of a loss, a fight and a half before, to Lamont Peterson, and he had lost his second fight of his career, and then never really stepped up. And the first time he stepped up, he did beat Shane Mosley, though. He did beat Shane Mosley. His biggest career of David Avasyan is that he beat Shane Mosley back in 2016, which I do believe might have been Shane Mosley's last fight. If it wasn't, it was like the fight before last. But he lost. Then he goes out and loses to Lamont. He lost to Lamont Peterson, unanimous decision back in 2017. For the WBA regular title. That's the guy that Lamont Peterson won the regular title after. But after you go beyond that, every other guy that he's fought had multiple losses within 3 or 4 fights. Within the last 5 fights, he lost at least 2 times, many times 3 times of their last 5 fights. So this is not some seasoned guy. I have a hard time believing that this is somebody that really deserves to be ranked that highly off of who he's beaten. When I see him in the ring, he looks like a strong, heavy-handed boxer, fundamentally sound, the Eastern European style. He's going to come in there and, he's going to give it his best. He's not damaged goods at 30 years old, but a competent, easy, but competent, but yet easy money fight for Terence Crawford. I definitely think of all of the last 3 fights that he's had, the last 4 fights that Terence Crawford had, this might be the easiest one. Since the last 4 fights for Terence Crawford have been one that I thought was a good one in Felix Diaz. Then another one that I didn't have any problem with in what's my man's from Julius Ndungo, because it was a unification fight, right, at 140 pounds for the undisputed title. It wound up being that Julius Ndungo was not what he was cracked up to be, and he was a flash in the pan, and that was proven when Regis Porgray stepped up and did basically the same thing. And then he beat Jeff Horn, which again, like I said, I don't have any problem with that fight because that was for the WBO welterweight championship. He was an undefeated fighter and the WBO welterweight champion, so that was good. But this fight now we're heading into, you're not going to find any more there's not any more Olympic gold medalists, 147 Olympic gold medalists like Felix Diaz. There's not going to be there's not going to be Julius Ndungo at 147 pounds. And Jeff Horn has already done it at 147. So while I have absolutely no beef whatsoever with Terence Crawford's career to date, I definitely wonder about the quality of his opposition going forward. I think that he's going to be very, very hard pressed with Top Rank to get good fights. And I will say that he's probably going to get some fights where he can earn some good money. I'm not going to pocket watch. I'm not going to pocket watch Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford, like I said, that's my top guy pound for pound. I think he's my number 2 welterweight, though, behind Errol Spence Jr. But he runs a risk if he continues to fight, if he keeps fighting competition that's that far below his skill level. Like I said, Felix Diaz, I think, was a good fight. And it was, he's an, I don't believe he was undefeated at the time. But, Felix Diaz was a good match. I didn't have any problem with that. Julius Ndungo, although it was, like I said, even though on paper it was a good fight, I can understand why he would take it. That's not a competitive fight. That's nothing that pushed Terence Crawford. It's nothing that really made Terence Crawford make any adjustments. It's not anything really that really posed any risk to Terence Crawford. And Jeff Horn, the same thing. The only thing about Jeff Horn going into it was that Jeff Horn was big. And I just didn't know, okay, what is it going to be for him to deal? Will his punching power, will he be able to hurt a full-fledged welterweight? And he was able to buzz him. I don't really know if he was able to really hurt him. But he was just such a superior boxer that, man, he could hit Jeff Horn wherever he wanted. But going forward for Terence Crawford, from a boxing stands point of view, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see Egis Kavaliauskas. I don't want to see Amir Khan, right? And I don't want to see Konstantin Ponomarev, right? Those are fights that just, they'll put money in the pocket of Terence Crawford. And like I said, I'm not going to pocket watch it or hate on him doing what he's got to do, man. You know what I mean? I was a Tim Bradley fan in boxing. He never left Top Rank. And, but it just seemed to me that there was more. Top Rank had a little bit more to offer at welterweight to Tim Bradley than it does Terence Crawford. They literally don't have anybody at the weight class that Terence Crawford is going to end up at. So he could wind up spinning his wheels as a WBO champion for several years before he gets in with any of the other guys. The only hope I do believe for Terence Crawford to get his hands, well, there's two potential things that could happen. One is that if Manny Pacquiao loses to Lucas Matisse, that Terence Crawford could get Lucas Matisse now, or Lucas Matisse. That would be a name on his resume. I don't think that would be a competitive fight. And I think the outcome would be a foregone conclusion. But because of the punching power of Lucas Matisse, there would be some danger in it, and it's a name that's recognizable enough to generate some intrigue, right? So best case scenario, Manny Pacquiao loses to Lucas Matisse, and then Terence Crawford gets Lucas Matisse in his next fight, which I wouldn't doubt that Lucas Matisse would like to do, because that's two big money fights for the two money fights back to back for the Argentine for El Maquina. And I like El Maquina, so I wouldn't mind for him going out in his career like that. But then the other option is a fight with if Keith Thurman moved and signed, because I heard that there's rumors that he could be signing with Matchroom. There's a chance he could go with Matchroom if he really wanted to duck Errol Spence and those guys over there. That Terence Crawford could get a Keith Thurman fight to unify the WBA title, because everything's so up in the air with Keith Thurman right now. So, those are the path forward that I think is the best options for Terence Crawford, is if Manny Pacquiao loses to Lucas Matisse and he faces Lucas Matisse, or Keith Thurman defects and he's able to get a shot at that WBA title. And the other option is, this is almost as difficult as to get Errol Spence or Sean Porter or Danny Garcia done, is to see if he could get with Mikey Garcia. Of all the fights that are out there for Terence Crawford, other than Errol Spence Jr., the Mikey Garcia Terence Crawford bout is the one that I would like to see the most. That kind of that round, maybe like a round robinish type of situation with Terence Crawford, Danny Garcia, and Mikey Garcia, because all of those guys were both Danny Garcia and Terence Crawford were the kings. Were at one time the man at 147. I mean, excuse me, at 140, and then Mikey Garcia won a belt at 140, and I have a suspicion that he would have a good chance to beat a whole lot of people at 140. And then maybe also if after this World Boxing Super Series is done, if Regis Porgray moved up to 147 and could fight for the 147, the WBO 140 pound title against because Regis Porgray isn't signed to the WBC. There might be some way to work out a Regis Porgray versus Terence Crawford. But anyway, it is what it is, man. And that's, my thoughts on the next steps for Terence Crawford until there can be some type of arrangement set up for him to get at the PBC fighters. But this Egis Kavaliauskas, man, that's just that's borderline a tune-up, man, and an unfair bout, man. The guy's in Alias, by the way, is the Mean Machine. Nah, man, the Mean Machine gets shut down on that, dude. Anyway, it is what it is, and with that, I'm out. Peace.